Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, Disney Cruise Line is being sued for, yeah, you guessed it, because somehow they are the reason somebody caught COVID a year ago. Because they couldn't have ever possibly caught it anywhere else. So last year on March 7th to March 14th of 2020, two couples went on a cruise, the Disney Fantasy, out of, I believe, Port Canaveral, a 7-day cruise. They said that at the time, they were not allowed to get their money back. Remember, you're within a week of sailing or so. By then, your deposit and everything is, unless you have the insurance, is up for grabs, right? And Disney would not offer them to give them future cruise credits, so they had absolutely no choice. They had to go on the cruise. Well, no, you could have just not gone on the cruise and lost the money. That was your choice. You chose your safety, apparently, in your mind. It was dangerous. It was a bad thing to do. You chose your money over your safety. So that's a bad argument right there. But also, Disney has already shown in a letter that they sent out before that cruise ever set sail that people were allowed to take a 100% future cruise credit up to 1 day before the ship sailed. But we digress. The argument goes on that while on board, two people from each group, one of their child has an immune deficiency of some sort in both cases. One started having fever, chills, and trouble breathing. Because it couldn't be just fever and chills, because you got to get the trouble breathing in there, because otherwise it doesn't sound like COVID, right? It sounds like a cold. But either way, I'm not trying to make fun. This was probably a very serious thing for this family, and they went through a lot. But it's a year later. One of the families brought the child in the hospital when they get off the cruise ship, and apparently the child tested positive for COVID on April 1st. So 15 days after the cruise, 16 to 17 days after the cruise ended. So it was only from that cruise ship they could have ever possibly caught the virus. They couldn't have caught the virus on the way home from the cruise, on the airplanes, in the hotels. They could have only caught it from the cruise ship. They also couldn't have possibly caught it before going on the cruise ship, and perhaps endangered everybody else on the cruise themselves. That's an impossibility. It had to be on the cruise ship. The other couple tested positive, I believe, on May 1st, 45 days after they get off the ship. It's hard to tell from these lawsuits sometimes, but it could be the fact that they tested positive for having had COVID at that point, but it says in the lawsuit they tested positive for COVID 45 days later. And if that's the case, chances are you didn't catch it on that cruise. Chances are you caught it during the 45 days. But they went on to blame and do the timeline. We knew back in February of the Diamond Princess in Yokohama Harbor that, had all those people quarantined on the ship and all the infections. Yeah, the world was looking at that ship at the time and wondering what's going on and what to do. No one knew what was going on at that point. We did not know nothing. But they said the cruise line continued to have the buffet and events like dancing was still allowed, almost like it was a normal cruise. Well, yeah, because guess what? The entire countries of the United States and everything didn't have a single health measure in place on the March the 7th to the 14th. Not a single. There was no stay-at-home order at that point. There was no mask wearing at that point. There was nothing issued from the CDC or any warnings at that point yet. So yes, the cruise ships are going to act normally, right? They didn't know. No one knew. The whole world did not know how bad this situation was going to get yet. And you can argue whether it's overblown, it's real, it's not real. Doesn't matter. We're just talking about how the world perceived things at the time. So the cruise lines are the only industry out there also to have voluntarily shut down all this time. They've been shut down a year. The lawsuit was filed this March, a full year after this sailing took place. Just kind of long enough for, I don't know, there to be no documented records from the medical staff of these people perhaps visiting the medical center because they weren't feeling well on the cruise ship, or video surveillance footage from way back then of a year of these people dancing and partying and eating at the buffet like normal. Maybe, you know, if they were so worried that they were thinking on canceling their cruise and everything, did they partake in going to the buffet? Did they partake in going to dancing and, you know, doing the princess visits and that on the ship? If they did, they kind of ruined their own argument, and that will be a lot of the Disney case. It seems like it's almost like a money grab because right now, there were no fatalities, according to the lawsuit so far. There were no long-term side effects from anything happening. And as far as I can tell, just because you say things happened on other cruise ships in February, just the fact that nothing else was happening in the United States, no mask wearing, no show. The first stay-at-home order was not issued until 5 days after that cruise ended in North America. So, and the flights for international travel and everything were still going on. So if you're going to sue Disney, you kind of have to sue the government, the state, the airlines, the hotel industry, the bus services, the food industry. You have to sue everybody because nobody else was doing anything neither. And the unfortunate thing is that you cannot prove that you caught it on the cruise ship. You cannot, unless you have documented from the medical staff saying that you went to the medical staff complaining of COVID on the ship. But guess what? I didn't hear anything about the fantasy suspecting COVID on their ship and having to go under lockdown, because every cruise line at that point, if they had a case on board or suspected case on board, was reporting it, and they automatically had to shut down and end the cruise and come back to port. That didn't happen, which kind of means to me that these people didn't complain on the ship. And so if you look at just the wording of the lawsuit, it just seems like it's, you know what? It's the mouse. And they're worth billions of dollars. You know, maybe, just maybe, they'll just pay us some money to go away. Maybe. Because I don't think that this, from what I've read of the lawsuit, I don't see any concrete evidence that they actually caused, you know, the cruise ship, first of all, caused this. Second of all, that they had no preventive measures, that they had no alternative. That's all false because they could have just not gone on the cruise. That's like me saying that, you know what, I'll give you this free trip to this hotel, but there's a chance you might catch a deadly disease on it, or you're going to lose $3,000. And you decide, well, I want that $3,000. I'll play roll of the dice and take a chance on not catching that highly contagious disease because I want to save $3,000. It's not an argument. Saying there's no alternative is not an argument. And unfortunately, I don't see this lawsuit having any legs to stand on whatsoever. But that's just me. I'm not a lawyer. I have reached out to a couple lawyers and they kind of just went, nope, not going to happen. So I said, okay, I'll take your word for it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this has any chance whatsoever? To be honest, I kind of think it's a money grab. Plain and simple. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let's see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world. Hit that subscribe button. Till next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.